Hi, team, and welcome to episode 10 of the Health of Wealth podcast. And hope you've all had a great holiday. Happy New Year. And this is the first podcast of 2025. And what we thought we would do on this podcast today is we thought we would push it and coincide it with the challenge and briefly discuss calories, why hitting your calorie goal is important and being consistent with it. And, why this challenge actually matters, building awareness, creating habits. And it's mainly to help improve adherence, adherence around, because overall it's going to help you as a whole. And by people as well sharing tips and tricks and things like that, and obviously it's something you can discuss as well with your coach on your check-in calls, but also sharing different ideas yourselves as well. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get into this by handing it over to John straight away, because I believe John's got a few things he wants to say as well. There's just the two of us on today. Unfortunately, Gary can't make it, but Greg's on vacation. So anyway, John, so let's discuss why do you feel it's important, the importance of tracking calories then, John?
Well, I think really it just comes down to the very, very basic principle: what can be measured can be managed, right? And if we're not tracking our calories, and we decide, maybe I'm and I've been there, and I can totally empathize with this mindset. I'm too embarrassed to put in what I ate last night, because in the end, I'm supposed to I really ought to have 2,000 calories, and I probably ate 4,000, 5,000 calories last night. I had a bad night, by not putting that in and not allowing, your coach to see that, really only hurts your results, because we need to get to the root cause of why that happened and how we can create a plan to avoid that sort of a situation. So, I think it all starts with, measuring the data, really looking at the data, and being able to really hone in on where can we tweak, what is working, what's not working. And if we don't have a baseline set of data, we can't really figure out what's working and what's not working. So again, what can be measured can be managed, right? That's my
yeah, very true, John. And because many people, what I've found working with thousands of guys, just like yourselves, is they underestimate the calorie intake. And this is why we constantly preach to, and I'm sure your coach will have told you on your check-in calls and things, is weighing food. Ultimately, that is getting, really precise. That is going to produce better results, if that makes sense. Because, and I mentioned this before in another podcast, in one of the other podcasts, but even myself, after 20 years of tracking, 20 plus years of tracking food, if I don't weigh my food, I still don't get it correct. I might guesstimate like a chicken breast, let's say 200 gram, or let's say 8 ounces. And that's what I'm guesstimating. Then I wait, and it's usually out. It's usually totally different, So ultimately, by weighing it, measuring it, and I know you might be thinking, but I haven't got time for that, But it takes literally 2 minutes. It takes 2 minutes to measure your food, to get it ready, to put it in a pan, to cook it. It's the same as meal prep, And yeah, I know we strive for consistency over perfection, but this is why we use tools like MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal it's the best food tracking app that I've came across, and I've used most. I've used like the Fitbit app. I've used, there's lots, Eat This Much. There's lots of different apps you can use. But when it comes to the ease of it, how easy it is to use, and just by upgrading to the professional version, which I think it's about something like $80 a month or something like that. John, is it
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
US? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's about $80.
Sometimes even
Sorry,
less.
not a month, a year, a year. Sorry, for the full year, it's not a lot. So then you're going to have a scanner. You know, that scanner where you can scan your food. Because once you scan that food, it's going to save in your database. You know, so it can come up. And then obviously, which I've shown quite a lot of you, and I've got a video, I've done videos on this as well. And saving, like, let's say your wife or whoever's cooking the dinner for that evening is doing it for 4 people. You know, what you can do, you can, instead of individually weighing each portion, you just weigh the full lot, the full amount, and then you put it into MyFitnessPal. And if it's divided between 4 people, if it's for 4 people, you would just put it in like a quarter of what the actual calories are, and then it will break it down for you in MyFitnessPal. And if you want to know how to do that correctly, just let me know, and I'll fire the video over to you. But weighing and measuring food ultimately is far better than eyeballing it. You know, and also planning your food ahead as well. And now, what I mean by that, sometimes if you wait till the end of the day, number one, you're going to get nowhere near your calorie and protein goal. Number two is you probably, like John mentioned, you're probably overeating
Mm.
over the day, which again, unless we have consistency where it's pretty close throughout the day, it makes it harder for your coach to make any changes. So what I mean by that, as an example, let's say one day you have 3,000 calories, another day you have 2,200 calories, and then the next day after that you have 1,800 calories. You know, we need to look at, right, okay, where do we go from here? And by planning your food ahead of time, you know, and I don't mean like 2, 3 days ahead, I mean just for the next day.
Mm.
It takes 10 minutes on an evening, you know, and I know some guys have said, well, you know, I don't know what my wife's gonna cook for dinner, you know. Ask her. Ask her what's for dinner. You know, she'll either know on the day or on the morning. You know, most people will have an idea of what they're going to prepare, because you've either got the food in or you need to go shopping for the food, you know? So John, how do you plan your day? How do you plan your nutrition over the day?
Yeah, so so for me, I do what I possibly can to satisfy a couple of different buckets. First of all, especially when I was first going through the program, way back, I did not concern myself with fat and carbohydrates. I concerned myself with my total calorie intake and my protein. Why was that? I don't have anything against, tracking carbs and fats. It was just too difficult for me. So I wanted to find a way that was the most simplistic possible to get me the results that I was doing. And I found that by hitting my calories, because you educated on, in the end, if you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight, right? And if you're
Yeah,
you're hitting your protein number, you're going to continue. You're either going to build or maintain the current muscle that you have, right? So the with those two pieces of knowledge in mind, right? I that was my first thought process. And and then from there, the the next thing that came into play in the planning stage was I have to hit my calories. You said to me, I want 40 calories in the very beginning. John, I don't want a variance of more than 40 calories. And I said, then that's exactly what I'm going to do, right? If you tell me 2000 calories, it's either going to be 1960 or 2040. That's my variance right there. And that was law to me, right? And as long as I took those things in mind and planned my next day as such, everything fell into place after that. Was there some days where I was way over my fats and way under my carbs? Was there some days that I was vice versa, way over my carbs, way under my fats? But as long as I was hitting those numbers, I was feeling good and I was losing weight. And 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 for me, we don't do a lot of cooking at our house. We did a ton of eating out, and we did we do a ton of throw together stuff. We're not big, recipes, ingredients, time in the kitchen people, right? So as long as if I could make that work with the understanding that if I really want to get to my goals, I have to understand that I'm not going to be accurate going out to eat. Um, and if I could keep all that in mind and then plan for the next day what I was going to do and put it into my Fitness Pal the day beforehand, then it was going to be a successful day. And then I would put timing to each one of those meals. Say, okay, my breakfast is going to be at this time, and then I'm going to set an alarm for, and have my snack at this time.
Really.
Um, and to keep myself full and thinking about food and water all day long, and that included hydration as well. And when I felt too hungry, I had another glass of water. So that was on a meal planning piece of it. I tried not the thing I wanted to do most was not overcomplicate it and to
Yeah.
take the simplest ingredients possible. Now for me, that doesn't work for a lot of people because some people like a more elaborate, plan. For me, I could go with one ingredient and call it done, right? So it was that doesn't work for everybody, but finding something that's the simplest path to success for you is what's going to get you there.
Yeah, yeah. And something you mentioned there, John, is something that I still do. I still set a timer. Well, not so much a timer, an alarm on my mobile or my computer, because a lot of us now working from home,
Yeah.
aren't we? And there's always that temptation, that fridge, or the cupboard with the chocolate biscuits in
Mhm.
and things like that. Why I'm a big fan of meal prep is because it's a lot of the time it takes away that temptation of actually, you know, grabbing that quick snack,
Yep.
if that makes sense. So just trying to spend, maybe 15, 20 minutes on a morning if you've got time, or the day before, to prepare some food, to have it ready, within the fridge, and then inputting the meals and snacks into your track at the start of the day or the night before, is going to help with that as well. So what I mean by that is them last minute temptations, like with the meal prep, the benefits of the meal prep, it's going to take away that temptation of grabbing something that you would maybe not norm. Well, that's not going to help with the journey, if that makes sense. And one of the reasons, and I get a lot, and I was on a call yesterday with someone, and they couldn't understand why we track calories, why we don't give meal plans, and
Don't learn anything.
and when I explained why we track calories is because of the flexibility side of it. And why I'm talking about this now is, at the end of the day, as long as you're within your calories, close to your calories, what you eat. I mean, obviously, I don't mean get all your calories from chocolates or foods that aren't healthy, if that makes sense. But you can have a lot more flexibility, which allows you to be able to eat out and things, where if you've got a meal plan for every day of the week, then it gets boring, it gets tedious. And this is why people fall off. This is why people find it hard to adhere to a meal plan. So what I'm getting to here is, be adventurous with your food.
Mm.
Add different sauces, add different rubs on your chicken or your steak or your whatever protein you're having. If obviously if you are a meat eater, if you're not vegetarian, but be adventurous. Because it doesn't have to be boring and bland.
Mm.
You know.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Craig, just one thing that I would bring up is, I brought props today, right? I brought a measuring cup with me. Okay.
Yes.
And so what I did this morning was I weighed out and measured out all my food for the day. Okay. Using a set of measuring cups. This happens to be one of them. But I have a bunch of different types of measuring cups at my house, right? I have quarter cups and half cups, 3/4 cups, all that stuff. And the serving size on a lot of these boxes is, it gives you both usually a gram count, but it also gives you a volume measure as well. So a weight count and a volume count. And here's something that I found shocking, but not shocking, right? So I did out my entire day's worth of meals in some sort of a volume container. Um, and there was a 22% variance, a 22% variance between the grams of a serving and the measurement of a and the volume measurement of a serving. So I could have easily gone with cups for my entire day, and I would have been 20% over on my calories versus weighing it out on my food scale. So, um, pretty wild
Yeah.
just how off a set of measuring cups can be, or some sort of a volume measuring tool can be in terms of you trying to reach your goals. It's a great visual tool. Now, is it certainly better than eyeballing it? 100%. Using a cup rather than eyeballing a cup is better. But using a weight scale over that cup is so much better than that as well, because those percentages translate, right? And over the course of a week, suddenly you're eating 20% more calories than you think that you're
Yeah.
um so anyway.
Yeah. And didn't you transition from measuring in ounces to grams as well, John?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
So
how do you feel that that benefited you?
yeah, so same thing. So a lot of food scales give you the ounce option, right? And that ounce option is great, but there's a huge difference. I think, I don't know the exact conversion, like 29 grams for an ounce, something
Mm.
like that. I don't know. But uh one thing that I noticed distinctly was on my food scale, you would get the types. If you're halfway through an ounce, that's significantly different in visually how it displays on a food scale versus a gram count. So again, getting closer to that precision also does some really wonderful things. First of all, it it sets a standard for you as far as what an actual serving is. It helps you truly understand what that serving is. And, not just about staying within your calories, but as well as being able to understand, what a true day's worth of calories are, and what it takes to get there. And it also is educational for the future in terms of, what you're going to be able to see in front of you. Versus, some people use the fist method. I want a fist of
Yeah.
protein, like, and
Yeah.
how we see a plate, and all that's well and good. All that's great, great in terms of being able to make some eyeball measurements. But nothing beats grams on a scale.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Cool. Cool. And when it comes to like the planning side, John, like inputting meals before you eat them, like, do you know when you first started your journey, John? How did you actually track your food? Did you track it ahead of time, or did you go because I remember, I think it was around about 22 years ago or something like that. And it was when If It Fits Your Macros first
Mm,
came out.
yep.
And it was, I was like, I'm not doing that. Eat what you want and, lose weight. What a load of rubbish. And I didn't
Mm.
ever believe it until I did it. And prior
Yeah.
to that, it took me 5 years to lose 140 pounds.
Yeah. Wow.
I,
Wow.
I honestly say, if I'd had used the method that we're using now, I would have lost that in a year.
A lot faster. Yeah.
I'd have saved
Yeah.
4 years
Yeah.
of failed attempts.
Yeah, there was like so many different apps out there, right? There are so many different apps out there, and so many different, you know, methods. For me, our program was fairly simplistic for me because I don't have any food restrictions. I will eat anything that's in front of me. I don't require elaborate recipes, things like that. So that helps me a lot, right? Um, uh, but yeah, knowing that there's some flexibility in there and just kind of going, okay, well, I've got to I've got to hit my protein target, and then if I want pizza after that, and full disclosure, you and I have talked about this several times. Like, if you hit your calories every day exclusively on chocolate, going back to your previous statement, like you're going to lose weight. You're going to go into a diabetic coma a lot sooner than losing
Yeah.
weight. But it really is simple. It's calories in, calories out, right? And but we want you to be healthy, and we want you to build muscle and sustain muscle at the same time. Um, and
I mean,
but
overall, what you using this flexible approach, and I always found that there's sometimes, like in the early days, I got a bit too flexible, if
agreed.
that makes
Yeah,
sense, and I
yeah,
wasn't prioritizing like nutrient dense foods, the foods that are going to keep us fuller for longer, like lean proteins and veggies and healthy fats and things like that. I would say I was getting around 20-25% of my daily caloric intake from things like chocolate,
mm,
sweet in general, because I've got a very terrible sweet tooth.
yeah,
But I always, even now, today, include a treat every day. Now, what I mean by a treat is it will be something like a small, like the snack size chocolate bars you can get and things like that. And this is the reason why we say to you to plan your food ahead of time, because you can get these within your day. You can add them into MyFitnessPal for the full day. And again, like I say, if you're within them calories, then we're good to go.
yeah,
So, and again, when we first started, like John mentioned earlier, when I first started myself, it was mainly eating protein and calories. And then we eventually transitioned to try and hit the carbohydrates and the fats as well. But mastering the basics first is what's
mm.
important, you know? And
I love
and
love that you said that.
and
Mm,
and, and just making smart choices and smart swaps. Like if you're going to use like pour the oil in the pan to fry the egg, then it's oil, fats are very calorie dense. There's like 9 calories in 1 gram of fat.
mm.
Where if you were maybe to replace that with a, a 0 calorie spray, but also I'll never forget a time. It was, I think it was something like a couple of months in your journey, John, when we were on a check-in call and you were on about the spray and you said like you were just spraying it, freely, and then you read the actual the food label.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't it say something like,
You It inspired me to bring a prop today, Craig.
"Oh, fantastic."
That conversation actually, like it yeah, the back of these food this I have here a thing of Pam cooking spray, which is 0 calorie, right? But
Yeah,
if you look at the back of it, it says in this can, there's 565 servings per container, and a single serving size is a quarter second of a spray, okay, which is that's it right there, right?
yeah,
But what do we really do? Like this, it's not like this is not made out of oil. This is actual oil. There's oil in this
yeah,
container, right?
yeah, yeah.
And and a quarter second spray isn't enough to like, cook, I don't know, like a dollar, right? It's like you couldn't put a coin on a frying pan with that kind of a spray, right? Like so what do we really do? We coat the whole darn frying pan,
Yeah,
and
I do.
yeah,
Every, when I have an omelette, I'd say around about 15 to 20 sprays,
yeah,
just,
there.
so it doesn't stick to the pan.
So in just kind of thinking in that perspective, that sounds to me like you're probably leaning more towards 30, 40, 50 calories, right? And not to get too technical, because this is certainly a better option than just dumping a bunch of oil into a pan. But it's perspective, right? Really understanding what you're putting in your mouth and really taking the time to look at that stuff is important.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And John, what do you do if you miss a meal then? I know you said you set alarms like I do myself, but what do you do if how do you get around that, John? And by the way, guys, you've got to bear with us on these calls because these calls are live, you know, and we do not go through it before the call. I do not say to John or Gary
Mm,
or Greg what
we
I'm
don't
going to
edit.
ask them. So I'm putting him straight on the spot here.
It is pretty funny though that I brought my cooking spray to this call.
It is, yeah.
We did not plan that. And we can't edit out all of my stuttering and my rambling. But the so uh as far as skipping a meal, you make up the meal, right? Like you move on. I think it's easy to say, well, I'll just skip the meal, skip the entire day. For me anyway, I what I try never to do is say, well, skip the meal, then I can eat, 500 more calories tomorrow. You can do that. You can do that. And there's ways to do that, once you're deep into the program, and
Yeah,
we do calorie cycling on training days and so on and so forth. We do get into that over a period of time, but particularly when you're in the initial stages of this journey, you hit your calories every day. You hit them every day.
yeah,
And if you get to the end of the day and you still have 200 calories to eat, you eat those 200 calories. And you get it in an appropriate way. You don't just, you just don't burn them, like, yeah, and if you want, maybe you got room for a chocolate bar and you have the chocolate bar, right? If you've hit your
yeah,
protein already.
yeah,
But y- but I I think really that's the goal. You gotta exercise consistency in all things, not just about hitting the gym 4 days a week. It's not just about going on a 15-minute walk every day of the week and hit my 10,000 steps every day. It's not being a roller coaster ride with your nutrition.
yeah, yeah. And John, right, let's say the journey itself. We've got a mixture of these are things that we focus on that's going to help you guys get the results you want, make you feel better, give you more energy. Out of the exercise, the nutrition, things like sleep, everything we focus on in within this program, which do you feel is the most important for that to achieve that transformation?
Somebody asked me this the other day, and I feel like I was too wishy-washy in my answer. But so now I will be less wishy-washy in my answer. It's nutrition.
Yeah,
You cannot outtrain a bad diet. You cannot outtrain a bad diet. That's it.
yeah, very true,
Yeah.
true. And so, what I'd want you to like, how I want to summarize this podcast up today, guys, is planning ahead. Ultimately, having an idea of what you're going to eat, trying to make that time. It's not finding time. It's not I don't have time. It's making time to do a bit of meal prep, to have that food ready. Instead of like thinking, oh, I've slept in, I haven't got time to take my lunch to work. Do it the night before if you feel like the morning is going to be stressful with the children or whatever you do on a morning. If you're training on a morning, a lot of guys are training on the morning because they haven't got time on the night because they don't know what time they're going to get finished work, etc. But ultimately planning that food ahead of time is number one, it's going to give you more flexibility. It's going to make it more enjoyable. And most importantly, you're going to get to your goal a lot quicker than just guesstimating and tracking at the end of the day what you've ate for the day, because you will never, ever get anywhere near. John, any closing thoughts on anything?
I'm looking around at all my props, seeing if I missed anything, and no.
So again, guys, if you have any questions for us about this, just get them below or shoot your coach a message, myself, John, Gary, any questions that you have, just get them over to us, And again, if you find something that works good for you, get it shared in the community, in the group, because it could help other people as well. Different like food ideas and different like tips to make it easier, because at the end of the day, we haven't got time to spend an hour, 2 hours to meal prep. And by doing it on a daily, or again, like doing it daily is fine, but batch cooking things is going to be a lot easier than doing it day by day. But when it comes to tracking calories, we've got to get it in ahead of time, and we just play around with the serving sizes in MyFitnessPal, and that is going to get you closer to that protein and calorie goal. Anyway, thank you very much and hope this helps. Drop a comment below if you enjoyed it. Drop a comment or messages if any idea for anything you want covering in the next podcast. And have a fantastic week. Speak soon. Thanks, guys.
Happy
Thanks, John.
2025.